Welcome to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Siobhan Gobin. Here are the stories that we're following today, September 16, 2013. In international news, tropical storm system meets Rocky Mountains and Colorado suffers. Convincing evidence of chemical weapons attack in Syria, says the UN inspectors. Authorities hunt active shooter at the Washington Navy Yard. Several victims are reported. Indonesia's Mount Sinabung erupts. Nearly 6,000 nearby villagers evacuated. Details on these headlines and more when we return.
Hey, excuse me, if you see me smiling, that's 'cause I'm chilling on Total Caribbean Network. It's your boy Wyclef Jean, and I'm chillin', man. Total Caribbean Network. Man, I love their style. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Welcome back to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Siobhan Gobin. This segment of the news is sponsored by Total Caribbean Network. In international news, except for the big Thompson fly fishermen and tubers lolling down Boulder Creek, most residents of the Colorado Front Range usually pay little mind to the small rivers that trickle by on their way from the mountains to the plains. Until this week, when more than a foot of rain from a storm system hung up on the Rocky Mountains, supercharged those streams and others with a deadly force that left vast corridors of destruction stretching from the foothills to the farmlands of the plains. The water came over and it was 2 to 3 feet deep and broke our doors down, said Jack Hammond, who left his home in the foothills west of Lyons for a Fort Collins shelter with his wife, their daughter, and their dog. Dams along a chain of 5 small reservoirs failed upstream of Hammond's home on a Little Thompson tributary as the rain picked up on Wednesday. As the family huddled upstairs, water downstairs toppled their refrigerator and dumped 6 inches of mud. Finally, on Friday, a Colorado National Guard helicopter hoisted them and their young German Shepherd to safety. In semi-arid Colorado, the problem is usually too little rain that leads to drought and wildfires. But when the skies open up, the potential for the biggest drenching lies along the Front Range, where the eastern foothills meet the plains and most of the state's population lives. Under the right circumstances, a moist air mass can hit the foothills and get stuck. Moisture turns into rain, in this winter snow, and just keeps falling. That's what happened last week when a storm system parked itself over a big swath of the state with so much embedded vapor that forecasters described it as tropical. Colorado is far from tropical moisture sources, meaning those factors come together rarely, perhaps once every 10 to 15 years, says Nolan Doiskin, the state climatologist at Colorado State University. It's difficult to predict monster storms, meteorologists say, and early computer models forecast 3 inches of precipitation would fall from the statewide system. That amount alone would be a big deal for dry Colorado, a big fraction of its annual rainfall, Doiskin said. But then all that moisture bumped against a sprawling counterclockwise wind pattern that pushed it repeatedly up the slopes of the foothills. It condensed, fell as rain, and then the cycle repeated. In Boulder alone, the system dropped a record 9 inches between Wednesday and Thursday evenings, smashing the old record of 4.3 inches. By weekend, Boulder County had as much as 15 inches in some areas. When the rains come, the mountain topography can turn it into a disaster. All that water is channeled into a handful of narrow, steep canyons that concentrate the rushing runoff, giving it the strength to push cars, boulders, and even buildings out of the way. It's happened before several times in the state's history, including in 1965 flood in Denver that killed between 20 and 30 people. In 1976, the state's deadliest flood killed 144 people in one of the areas devastated by the latest flooding, Big Thompson Canyon. That deadly flood was the result of an hours-long deluge not one that lasted for days. After that flood, signs were installed on the canyon leading to Rocky Mountain National Park, warning drivers to climb to safety in case of flooding. Jan Goswell, one of about 100 residents stranded in Poudre Park along the Poudre Canyon, knows Colorado's extremes well. Last year, they were evacuated for several weeks because of wildfire. Now it's flood damage on the road through the canyon, their children unable to get to school and cut off from ambulances in case of emergencies. They had enough food thanks to the experience in preparing for snowstorms to have organized other residents for a potluck, but they are getting restless. UN inspectors say there is clear and convincing evidence that chemical weapons were used on a relatively large scale in an attack last month in Syria that killed hundreds of people. A report from the inspectors says, and I quote, "The environmental, chemical, and medical samples we have collected provide clear and convincing evidence that surface-to-surface rockets containing the nerve agent sarin were used in the Ghouta area of Damascus on August 21st. The conclusion is that chemical weapons have been used in the ongoing conflict between the parties in the Syrian Arab Republic against civilians, including children, on a relatively large scale," the inspectors said on the first page of the report to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Ban is scheduled to present the report to the UN Secretary Council today. A gunman is still on the loose after shooting at least 5 people at the Washington Navy Yards in D.C. early this morning, police said. 3 of the victims are described as civilians. One is a D.C. police officer and the other a base officer, according to police. Authorities are searching for a black male believed to be nearly 6 feet tall, wearing a black shirt and black hat. Police first responded to reports of shots fired inside the Naval Sea Systems Command Headquarters building around 8:20 a.m., according to the U.S. Navy. At least 3,000 people work in that building. And I quote, "The president directed his team to stay in touch with our federal partners, including the Navy and the FBI, as well as the local officials," the statement said. "We urge citizens to listen to the authorities and follow directions from the first responders on site." The Washington Navy Yard says on its website that it's the Navy's oldest shore establishment. It's home to the Chief of Naval Operations and is also headquarters for the Naval Historical Center and numerous naval commands. Nearly 6,000 people were evacuated from their villages following the eruption of Mount Sinabung in western Indonesia, an official said today. The 2,600-meter volcano in North Sumatra province erupted early Sunday after being dormant for 3 years, sending thick ash into the sky with small rocks pelting neighboring villages, said National Disaster Mitigation Agency spokesman Sutopo Purwo Nugroho. He said almost 6,000 people have been evacuated and were being sheltered in 7 locations. No injuries or damage was reported. Most of the displaced were from 6 villages within 3 kilometers of the mountain in Karo district, Nugroho said. Local authorities prepared 2,000 blankets and distributed masks to displaced people. They also have set up a health command post. This morning, gray smoke still billowed from the peak of North Sumatra's tallest volcano, carrying ash eastward. Authorities asked residents to remain alert for other potential eruptions. Bambang Irvan, spokesman for the Transportation Ministry, said that the eruption delayed 6 flights at the Kuala Namu airport in the provincial capital of Medan on Sunday, but operations returned to normal today. Mount Sinabung's last eruption in August 2010 killed 2 people and forced 30,000 people to flee. It caught many scientists off guard because they had failed to monitor the volcano, which had remained quiet for 4 centuries. There are more than 129 active volcanoes in Indonesia, the world's largest archipelago nation. It is prone to seismic upheaval due to its location on the so-called Ring of Fire, a series of fault lines stretching from the Western Hemisphere through Japan and Southeast Asia. You are watching Caribbean Affiliate News. We will be right back.
Since we announced Sign and Drive with 0 out of pocket, and low monthly payments cars been flying out of Bronx Honda at a record pace. Whoa! New Accord is zero out of pocket for $249 a month, or new Civics just $199 per month, or save thousands with 0% financing. You never had to leave the Bronx to get the best price on the Honda. Bronx Honda guarantees the lowest price in the Bronx. Bronx Honda, East Tremont Avenue. Visit BronxHonda.com.